Good evening, campers, it's me, Kieran. Today we are going to talk about the 1974 novel Tamas. Bhisham Sahni's Tamas is a tale dedicated to exploring why religion should not be used in order to gain political power. And during a certain time, every Indian would have known his face, because he appeared, would you believe it, on a stamp! Now, if you've made it onto a stamp, you're probably worthwhile reading. Tamas has been translated into English 3 times. The version that I read was translated by Daisy Rockwell, who most people will now know as the translator for the Booker-winning Tomb of Sand. Rockwell sent me a number of Hindi works in translation, Tamas being one of them. In the introduction, Rockwell talks about the difficulty of translating this particular Hindi work. In fact, Sahni himself penned his own English translation with much difficulty as well. I would like to use this to pivot into talking about introductions, because I know a lot of people don't like reading them because they feel as though they're going to spoil the story. What they should serve to do is to give you a historical or cultural understanding to why the book was created, the purpose of what the book, the thesis or the message that it is trying to get across. Although I've read a number of post-partition novels, and the fact that Tamas was published post-partition, I don't know much pre-partition. Even just knowing this is set in the northwest of India to where the partition was to be drawn, and that this is set in 1947, will help you understand what is about to happen. So although Tamas is set before the creation of Pakistan, we still have the Hindu sentiment of a Hindustan, an India that is to be ruled by the Hindus, and the Hindus within this small town live in close proximity to the Muslims, who live in close proximity to the Sikhs. Due to the mix of all these people, they get on fairly well. There's not much commotion, there's not much ruckus. However, it is the political sentiments of certain individuals, be that Hindu, be that Muslim, who are going to forge violence. Before Sahni eloquently moves on to these discussions, we meet Nattu, who has been asked to kill a pig. Nattu, who wrestles in killing the pig, slaughters, and he does so because he's been told that the vet needs it, and that's his role, so he doesn't question it. He will begin questioning why he did it when that same pig's corpse that was carried off after slaughter turns up at the doors of a mosque. This incites a riot throughout the village. As this is pre-partition, the British are involved, and this is where we have the Deputy Commissioner Richard and his, the wife Liza. What was Liza? Liza is so unaware of anything that is going on in India that I was just there like, oh no, is this how we're viewed? Richard, who does have an understanding, shares his knowledge to Liza, who just sees everyone as Indians. But Richard's there saying, well, no, all the Sikhs have the last name Singh or Gill. Those who were named Muhammad are most likely Muslim, and various social and cultural clues that allows Richard to identify the Sikhs from the Muslims from the Hindus. And you just have Liza just flailing in the background being, how will I remember all of this? She was a character, but you don't have to worry about them, because the British had an idea of divide and rule, that they didn't need to divide the people because the people were going to divide themselves. And thus Richard feels as though it's not the onus of the British to stop the riots, even when those with political undertones of the Muslims and the Hindus come to Richard for help to stifle the riot before it gets out of hand. Richard falls into the bureaucrat role, saying, well, it's not technically him who controls the army, but the army aren't really involved with the riots, it would have to be somewhere else. And so this village, who have now incited a riot, can start to see the flames, and the fire is going to move quickly. While Liza was flailing around in the background, she is technically right. Racially, they are all Indian. Oh no, let's not mention the Turks who get involved. The only difference between these people, the thing that keeps them separated, are their religions. As all these religions are in close proximity to each other, they're attuned to each other's ways of life. So much so that they understand each other's role, and even in caste. Although I would say that most people have the idea that it is specific to Hinduism and is specific to India, which isn't the case. Caste forces the villagers to play their individual roles, which Sahni is showing how the political and the religious can exploit that aspect. One thing I appreciated about Tamas is that Sahni is not biased towards the Hindus, neither is he towards the Muslims. He shows that there are people who are willing to undermine for their own political power. Therefore, the litany of characters who flood onto the streets to participate within the riots all have their own reasons and have their own justifications. Sahni never justifies their actions. One of the takeaways I got from Tamas was that as everything is so ordered, as everything is so structured and that everyone has their role, it's why Natu will kill the pig without any questioning. The structures are so rigid that paradoxically it only takes a sow's final breath to topple it all. Those who have been following the way of life of caste for many years are now almost liberated. They are free to do whatever they want. Violence, the bloodshed and the carnage can only be stifled once the British decide to step in and create that order once more. As the riots stifle, Sahni shows that there's hostility between the two groups, and we as the readers understand that there's definitely going to be enmity between the Muslims and the Hindus. There's a discussion that a Pakistan would be created, but it's a gimmick used by politicians. This isn't actually going to happen. And what we'll see is that maybe from the beginning what we thought were peace-loving and hospitable people were always entrenched with this enmity, that there was always a clash that was going to happen. This last chapter and the fact that this was written post-partition is almost bittersweet, that there is a answer to this violence, to how it will stop, but will end up being one of the bloodiest moments in the 20th century. A very thought-provoking work is Tamas, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.